Today marks 1 year since a gunman entered a classroom at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, killing 19 children and 2 adults. Right now, we're hearing from the families forever changed by the tragedy, their pain, their frustration, and why they just can't leave the town.
Because I was just too scared to think about anything.
For Andrea Herrera, surviving the mass shooting in Uvalde is still a daily recurrence.
It just goes in my mind, just in loops, the same clip over and over again.
She was not only at Robb Elementary that day, but her stepbrother, 10-year-old Jose Flores, was killed in the classroom next door.
I was excited to see him get stuff, and I just was ready to hug him. And my mom told me, she said he didn't make it. And I started crying, and I couldn't believe it happened.
Andrea,
He loves music.
who we first met with her other brother Jaden just 2 days after the shooting, is still haunted by the thought of Jose's whereabouts during the shooting.
I was the middle child, but I was more braver than him.
So you're worried about how scared he was that day?
Yeah. During the classroom, I always imagine him how his face is, and he's scared.
Andrea's mother, Cynthia, says her kid's mental health and school performance keeps declining, and the tension in town increasing.
Does it ever make you want to leave?
Yes, for sure.
Why are you still here?
Well, because he's here.
Jose.
Yeah. And it's harder just to pick up and leave.
Brett Cross, too, is tethered to Uvalde after burying his 10-year-old Uzziah Garcia.
If I stop, I'm useless.
For Cross, leaving Uvalde would also mean giving up on a year-long fight for answers and change.
To do what is right.
One he has led at the local, state, and federal level.
Uvalde don't want to be known as Uvalde anymore. They don't want it to be, oh, we're known for Robb Elementary. But the fact is that you are, because our school failed, because our cops failed, because our government failed. And you want me to stop? I've lost a kid. I ain't got anything else to lose.
Perhaps the most pressing failure, 376 law enforcement officers from more than 20 agencies waiting for 77 minutes before breaching through a classroom door.
How do you describe to people who are not living here day to day what the relationship is like with police?
There were officers in there that could have ended it, but were told to stand down, and they listened. And then you see them. You get pulled over by them.
That's happened to you?
Yeah, it's infuriating because now I'm looking into the eyes of somebody that heard our children screaming, that heard the gunman reload and didn't rush in there.
To mend the broken trust, the mayor of Uvalde, Don McLaughlin, recently hired an assistant police chief from outside the town. But like the families of the victims, McLaughlin is still waiting for results from the local district attorney's criminal investigation.
In 1 year's time, I've had not one briefing, not one.
Parents this week and last week have been visiting Robb Elementary for the first time since their children were killed in that classroom. It's something that some families asked for and that had been prevented because of the ongoing investigation. Robb Elementary will be demolished at some point, pending a court order. Lilia Luciano, CBS News, Uvalde, Texas.
The local district attorney who says the investigation is still in the hands of the Texas Rangers. And once she receives those findings, she'll determine whether to recommend any criminal charges to a grand jury. Now, since the Uvalde shootings, the Gun Violence Archive reports that the U.S. has had 673 more mass shootings. The archive defines a mass shooting as 4 or more people shot or killed, not including the suspect. Now, of those mass shootings, 84 of them were mass killings. The U.S. Department of Justice defines a mass killing as 3 or more people killed, not including the suspect. The Gun Violence Archive has also tracked 1,273 instances where either a gun was brought to a school or a school shooting happened. 35 of those shootings were deadly. Now, among those shootings, the University of Virginia shooting in November 2022, 3 football players were killed and 2 students injured. Police identified the gunman as a former football player at the school. He was arrested and is expected to have a court hearing at the end of August. In February, 3 Michigan State University students were killed, 5 others were injured. The suspect killed himself after being confronted by police. Investigators say the shooter had no connection to the victims or to Michigan State. And most recently, you'll remember the March shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville. 3 young children and 3 school employees were killed. The shooter was shot and killed by police at the scene. Following the Uvalde and Nashville shootings, Triad schools took a look at their own safety protocols. And in the wake of those shootings, some districts increased door security, added cameras, some even added more body scanners and metal detectors. Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Schools is expanding their metal detector program. They plan to purchase 94 metal detectors, more of those metal detectors, for district middle schools and high school stadiums. All high schools currently have metal detectors, and they're used at random. The new metal detectors will cost $307,000. Now, as for the national gun control debate, a 2022 poll showed 63% of Americans were dissatisfied with U.S. gun laws. 1 year after the Uvalde school shooting, President Joe Biden is renewing his push for stricter laws.
We still need to ban, in my view, AR-15 firearms, assault weapons, once again. You know, they've been used time and again in mass killings of innocent children and people. We need to ban high-capacity magazines, the ability to shoot 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 bullets without reloading. Because today, guns remain the number one killer of children in America, guns.
President Biden signed an executive order just days before the Nashville school shooting. The goal was to increase the number of background checks conducted before the firearms can be sold, among other things. The White House said that executive order was the most comprehensive gun control policy that the president could enact without Congress.